Hello, it is Wednesday, the 14th of February 2024. My name's Alec Wells, and I am the staff lead for the Ecology Strategic Planning Committee group. And I'm very happy to have four members of that group here with me today: Derek Seller, Gabby Sheshlock, Andrew Nelson, and Stacey Anderson. And we are going to enter into a discourse around the subject of leadership, and specifically how leadership differs, if at all, between a male and a feminine perspective, and what it means from a cultural and subjectively influenced stance to take leadership in any role. So that's our starting point, and I'm going to open the floor so you can unmute yourselves. But Derek, you've got a lot of experience behind you. Perhaps you'd like to share with us a brief history of your leadership experiences, where they come from, and what does that question mean to you? What's the juxtaposition between a male and a feminine style of leadership in your experience?
Well, leadership is such a vast subject in the first place. So how do you gain leadership? Right from the Cubs, when I was about, I don't know, 5 or 6, through Boys Brigade, Air Training Corps, the Royal Air Force for 27 years, building up my own company that was worth or turning over just over £1 million a year, to taking a back seat and letting everyone else lead me with the NHS. But that's a different story. The reasons, let's have a look. The juxtaposition, I had to look it up, of masculine and feminine rather than male and female is a very interesting phenomenon, because in general, a male within sort of like the military side of things especially will be fairly autocratic. They will be telling you what to do, they will be ordering what to do and how you want to do it. The feminine side, also within the military, is, and other aspects of life, is they're going to be more team building. They're going to be looking at more family orientated, making sure that the team will follow them rather than being barked at by the masculine side of things. Real leadership, a good leader, can do both. So that's why I said masculine and feminine, because we can all get to our opposite side. I'm sure certainly parents have shouted at their kids and said, "You will do what I say," in the same way as a bloke will turn around and say, "Okay, let's talk about this. Let's see where we can go. Let's see what we can do for you. So because I'm doing this for you, then we can work together to work for the common goal." So masculine and feminine ways of doing it is the two different aspects of leadership. There's necessity for both. Okay, certainly in a military or blue light situation, someone will bark an order, and if you don't do it, you probably die. So it's a pretty good reason to follow someone that's going to bark orders, rather than say, "Oh, please, Mr. Mannering, will you do this for me? Will I, oh, you said I've got to duck. Why? Oh, there's a bullet in my head, Mr. Mannering." Yes. So yeah, there's aspects of leadership that we do need to find our masculine and our feminine side in all ways of doing things. As I said, with danger, it's going to be autocratic. With business, one would like to think it's going to be more democratic.
Okay, thank you. Great starting point. So we've got orders and a kind of autocratic approach. We've also got Derek bringing up this socio-emotional kind of leadership, which may or may not be the prime driver. So I'm going to ask one of the ladies, Gabby or Stacey. Stacey, you've raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, from a parent's point of view, it's leading by example. It's going there first. And I really get the male, female energies at the same time when you're coming into a leadership, because it's like compromise. You compromise and you come up with a solution to help a situation better. But if they keep on making the same mistake, it's like I've always said, when we're leaving, when the kids were younger, we were leaving in the morning. I started off like Mary Poppins. Come on, children, it's time to get your shoes on, time to get your jackets on. But by the time we were leaving, it was Batman that came out, get your jackets on. So it was one of them. And I've always said to my kids, and I've always said to other parents, I will be my kids' best friend. I will back them up with anything. I will lead them into whatever they want to be led into. But if they do something really wrong, mum will show up. Mum will be there to put a stop to whatever trouble they are getting themselves into. So having kids is a really, really good way to hone in these leadership skills, because there's a very fine balance where you're spoiling the kids to where you're neglecting the kids. So trying to keep that balance and keep that leadership going, where you're a strong role model for them, and you will not ask your kids to do something that you wouldn't yourself do.
Mm.
So I lead by example. If they want to go for something that they want to go for, I need to show them that I can do that as well.
Mm.
So that's always been the crux of it with me, as how can children believe in themselves if the parents don't believe in themselves first? And if we don't believe in ourselves to do a good job as parents, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. So having that belief in yourself that you can do that and you can lead by example can really bring a family together and a connection between parents and children together as well.
So with that kind of inference being mostly on modeling and leading by example, where do parents gain their own skills in being leaders? Where did you discover the way that you had the best authority or experience to show your children that your form of leadership was the air quotes correct one?
My inspiration from that was I wanted my children to be better than me. You always want the next generation to be better than the generation before. So it was like a fight against time, to be fair, because I didn't want my kids working from payday to payday. I wanted them to enjoy their jobs. I wanted them to enjoy their life. I wanted them to be true to who they are. I lied to myself all my life, and I noticed that when I had the children. That was really open to me, saying how could people hold these people back from being their true selves?
Mm.
So that's when I decided to take the chance and saying, right, you can be whatever you want to be. I'm here to support you. I'm here to keep you safe. But the choice, you've got your own personalities, the choice is yours. I saw that in them because nobody saw that in me. I was always told what they wanted me to be, what I was only capable of doing. And I wouldn't allow anybody else hold my children back in that.
Mm.
So I used what I didn't have to put into place for the kids so that they did have it. So as much as I had a supportive mum and dad, all they wanted me to do was to go out and work, bring in money. And I was like, well, I want to go to college. Forget college, just go out and work. And I hated my job from the day I started to the day I finished after having my kids. And that was 18 years working in kitchens and getting treated like crap. And I won't do that to my kids. I mean, Brandon, okay, he's 18. If he wants to work, he can work. But if he doesn't, as long as he's working on something, then that's fine. But I won't allow him just to sit here and do nothing. There's a compromise there. Because I won't sit at home and do nothing. I'll sit at home and do something, or else I'll go out and work.
Mm.
So that's where I'm leading by example.
So this is very much a nurturing kind of leadership, and I suspect we could probably put that in with feminine energy in terms of a management slash leadership style. What about things that transfer across from your experience of leadership as a parent that are more dynamic? You know, Brandon, you just referenced, we can see he had a birthday recently. Happy birthday, belatedly, Brandon. But that's an 18-year and beyond project that you've taken on. So what are the transferables? What are the dynamics that come out that help you with quick decision making that you've learned through your parenting skills?
Well, my kids did kind of become like my teacher. They became my inspirations. So the dynamic of me looking after them, nurturing them, leading them for so long, being able to take that step back and just letting them spread their wings. It tugs at the heartstrings, but it's so encouraging to see that they're level-headed, they've got a good head on their shoulders, they know what they want, they know how to go for it, and they won't allow anybody to hold them back. But I will always be a support there for them. But I've told them, you're 18. This is you. It's time for you to spread your wings. If you need me, I'll be there. I need to take a step back. So, I mean, it's really hit Brandon that, oh my God, I'm 18. I'm an adult. And I was like, yeah, the day you turned 18, I was still mothering you because you were in sick all day. But it was, he can do what he wants. He's booked a hotel in Manchester. He's going to see a concert up in Manchester. He's going there himself, and he's going to university. And as much as I hate it when parents say that's because of me. No, it's not. That's because of Brandon. The fact that I've gave him the space to discover who he is also like such a huge shift from when I was his age to what he is now. And I'll do the very same for the other two as well.
Thank you. So we're hearing both socio-emotional, we're also hearing nurturing. Andrew, I know that you've got a family, you've also had businesses, and you're very much aiming at leadership development in your backyard, as you phrase it. Gillet, what are your thoughts? Where does the difference lie? Where does leadership that needs a dynamic response differ to the leadership that perhaps you show and exhibit in your family? You're muted, my friend.
From my experience, I spent a lot of time in the working world as a soccer coach in universities, and then in the business world for 13 years. And now my primary job is as a parent. And what I learned a lot from all of them, being a parent has actually been kind of like the thing that's pushed me over the edge, because quite often when you're in a working environment, you have position, and quite often it's very easy to fall onto your position as the thing that makes things happen. You kind of manipulate, to be honest, the situations so that people do what you want them to do. And being a parent, all of a sudden, if you try to do the same thing, you're on a losing streak there. So what I've learned is slowly is to be more of a servant leader, and that can transfer very nicely from parenting into the real world. The real world. There's nothing more real than being a parent, but the working world. So instead of demanding or continuously rewarding / manipulating your children, you start to go from a place of, well, look, son or daughter, can you help me here? You know, do you really want to use those words, those very difficult, nasty words? Can you help me and tone it down and maybe kind of start to find some positives? And while that might not work in the general sense in the working world, being a servant leader, if you do it in the right way, not being servile, but being supportive and adding value to the people that you're working with, can take you a lot further than just saying, well, I'm the boss and this is the way it is.
There being a huge difference with families, you know, punitive measures, disciplinary action, the types of things that you can take in a business or an organization when someone isn't performing, being extremely different to, unless perhaps in the marital situation, you know, you are the weakest link, goodbye. So very different necessities within those frameworks. So Gabby, I know you've got a great habit of sitting back and getting an overall picture. So what are your thoughts so far?
Well, I find it really interesting, and I love that Derek straight away started with feminine and masculine traits in leadership rather than, oh, there's female leaders and there's male leaders, because I think that discussion doesn't get us anywhere. The first question really is with what is a good leader? What makes a good leader? And for me, a good leader is somebody who can read their team, has an interest in each team member, and can support them in whatever they're doing. And as Derek said, if it gets really troublesome, who can take the rein and says, okay, now I'm in trouble, we do this, because people will look to a leader for that skill. And I don't think it has to do so much with being authoritative, but by the leader being willing to take the rein when it's needed to guide them. And I think this is really what we mix up a lot. You know, when you grew up, and a lot of managers I had, they thought leadership is being authoritative. But being authoritative isn't really leadership, it's being a bully. Let's name it, right? It's being a bully. And the one thing you hear a lot from managers or CEOs, how can we get our people to do what we want them to do? Well, you can get them to do what you know, but that's fear-based. So the minute they get a chance to get out of there, they're gone. And then companies complain, oh, our staff isn't loyal anymore. They change jobs all the time. And I was just in a business meeting in my hometown. And what the small businesses all said was that it's important to them. The most important trait they're looking for in staff is loyalty. Because they're very specialized little companies. It takes a long time to train people up. By the time they can work independently, they don't want them to just go and leave, right? Then it's very hard to find staff, good staff, trained staff. So they want to keep the staff, but you don't get loyal staff by being authoritative. The same way, or as Derek said, a masculine style, the same way if you're a female leader, and we all learned as girls, you have to be a good girl and you can't be authoritative, not as a girl, right? There's this stereotype still in our heads. So we might be too soft. We might not take the rein when it's time to do so, because we want to make it right for everyone, right? And we may be afraid to take decisions and take that lead. So it's very important to be that leader who's actually there and sees people. And it's what you really need is this mixture between the nurture and taking the rein when it's needed, and to be a good role model. And Stacey had a really, really good point there. You need to be the same role model to the people you work with than to your children. I mean, I had bosses who said, well, you can't take holidays in September, October because we're so busy, and the whole entire staff is not allowed to take holidays. And then a client rang some stage in October, really urgent. It was an emergency. I walked into the office, he wasn't there, and I said, where is he? He's gone on holidays. Right? So that brings so much, you know, disharmony.
Mm.
So you have to be a good role model. If you have rules, because it's needed for the business, even like a certain time, like it's busy now, we can't take holidays, do the same. Lead by example.
So management and leadership, not necessarily the same thing, is what I'm hearing from that. And also something that I've heard in the past is that people don't leave organizations, they leave managers, particularly poor managers. So we've got now also individuality and individual mindset playing into the role, the relationships that we have with others. So where do we strike a balance? How do we find that line between authoritative, potentially punitive, rewarding, nurturing? What are people's thoughts? Stacey, you're unmuted.
Yeah, Gabby made such a great point there, is get to know the team. Read the situation. It's when I was working before as a passenger assistant, one of my children, she was in her 20s, severely disabled, couldn't talk, really sporadic movement. She could become violent. But she was such a sweetheart, such a sweetheart. Now, she had a fear of men, she had a fear of loud voices. And the passenger assistants who was with her before used to scream at her, stop it, you're being silly. Stop it, that's not a way for a girl to behave. You're being naughty. Constantly at her like that. But when she started getting frustrated, she used to punch her head. And she had one of those hats on, the protective hats. And she was punching her head. So I didn't like her doing that because I thought, so I spoke to her, I was like, Olivia, I was like, what are you doing? Don't do that. It's like, give me a hand. Give me a hand, calm down, everything's fine, everything's okay. And the taxi driver who'd been driving her for ages says, I could not believe in the difference in her with the way you spoke to her. She calmed right down.
Mm.
So I got her, instead of her hitting herself, she squeezed my hand when she got frustrated. So every time I was in the car and she got frustrated, she'd reach out for my hand rather than punch. So it's, again, read the situation. Teachers in schools, it's right, okay, there is some problematic children, but they just treat every child like the same.
Mm.
So one of a parents' evening I had about our Jaden, and he needs to work on his maths GCSEs, and I was like, fine. I'm going to set him some more homework, and if he doesn't do it, he's going to get a detention. And I just went, no, see, Jaden doesn't care for detentions. And he went, what? I says, he doesn't care. I says, isolations? Great, he gets a day of peace. I says, he really doesn't care. I says, if you want Jaden to get involved, get him involved.
Mm.
Stop throwing negative consequences at them because they don't care. And it's the same when you're running a company. Read the situation. Read the team. How's it going to work? I used to work for a boss who used to say, do as I say, not as I do. Now that's what he used to say to us. Do as I say, not as I do. And everybody just constantly rebelled against him, and he had nothing but trouble with the staff.
Mm.
So it's like people want to feel like they're a part of the team. Payne mentioned something in that live Facebook last night, and I thought, you know, it's so true. Community is broken down in every town near enough in the world. But see, when you think in people in work, that's a part of their community. When I was working in the factories, when we went past that security gate, that was our little world that we used to all help each other. People that are in factories or in offices, that's their office, they're all there. That's a community for them.
Mm.
So that's the way people see it. So it's turning up to be that leader to help build that community, to make it a more inspiring and better working place for the people who are there. If you go in there and bark orders saying this is what I want you to do, nobody's going to take a blind bit of notice. So again, just read the situation, get to know your team.
So we're actually referencing Kane Ramsey there, in case anybody is not a member of the Facebook group, Principles into Practice, or the Academy of Modern Applied Psychology, Ecology. And Kane's live yesterday is available in that Facebook group. He also made a really interesting point that when he realized what he needed to be in order to be the father that his daughter required, it was actually just how he has always been, with probably all of us in here who've met him and know him to a certain degree. It's the authenticity, which is the complete opposite of what you just said, Stacey, and I know you were referencing a boss there, not yourself. Do as I say, not as I do. So we've got these either cells of community or maybe slightly larger organisms, if you're talking factories and the like. How do they differ? And Derek, I know that you raised your hand earlier. Is it, where does it lead us in the conversation? What would you like to say?
Basically, everything that Stacey said, I was going to say something similar, certainly about do as I say, not as I do. That's quite a common thing in the past, hopefully not so common now. But if you look at the leadership traits of everybody, I think we've actually just encompassed most of them. I've got 4 here that I think I should read out. One is building strong relationships, which is paramount to everything. Creating a positive culture, straight out of Stacey's mouth. Yeah, it's there. Yeah, having accountability and effectively solving problems. And that's what Stacey has just said about this young girl. But it works in business, it works in the military, it works in all walks of life. I've been doing a paper on leadership, and I explained it to Andy the other day. And you can take all sorts of different walks of life, whether it be going for a walk with a group of friends, or leading a multi-million-pound business, or being a general or a corporal or whatever you want in the military. But it's all the same, because the example I used was, if you're walking up a hill with a group of friends, you're just having a chat. No one's meant to be a leader. No one's meant to be doing this, that, or the other. But invariably, you'll find somebody in front. So you're looking at them and they're guiding the way. Then someone has a fall. Someone with the experience of medical first aid or whatever will then take responsibility or take the lead and build the team round to get this person to safety. And then the other leader will carry on with the walking with the others. So all of a sudden there's one leader, then there's one leader for each situation. And by building the relationships with the people, you can do that. What I was saying about the more autocratic thing, as I said, with the military, a little bit different. But then if you're a general in the army and you're about to go into battle, you'll never see a general in the front of a battle plan, right? He would always be in the back telling his lads to go and do what they've got to do. So you've got the junior leaders, and it is normally the non-commissioned officers, not the officers, that lead the people into battle. There's a classic example of that of the Falklands War. There was a bloke, he got a VC for it, a bloke called Colonel H. Jones. And basically, he wanted to be a leader in battle, but he'd never really been trained to be a leader in battle. And so he had a sergeant that was there looking after him. And unfortunately, he got them both killed because he was a bit too bravado. He went out, the sergeant went behind him to try and protect him, and they both got killed. Whereas all the people that had been trained in battle and knew how to lead their team in battle kept their heads down, basically, and stayed alive. So, and it can work with industry, again, building the relationships. I've been in industry as well as the other stuff I've done. If you talk to your people, just like Stacey was saying, if you explain what's going on, build a good team spirit, then you will not get the people going off in droves, oh, I've learned all my stuff. Let's go off and do it somewhere else where I can make more money or I can make more impact or something else like that. If you've got the complete team spirit, you're going to get the responses that you want. And it's been proven now that the democratic way of leadership is far more effective than the autocratic one. Sorry, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you. Andrew, we've had a conversation recently about making sure that people are aware that there are roles in a team and trying to identify the right people to occupy the right roles, which comes almost directly from where Derek was leading us. So any thoughts for you on the setup of an organization and a team?
Yeah, it starts with the leader, and there's different levels of leaders. You've got, your one that's just been anointed as a leader, and then you've got kind of like the next level down, which is where they're making those relationships with the people. And so that means, what's that mean, making relationship? It doesn't mean just sticking your arm around them and having a laugh and a joke. It's a lot more deep than that. It's spending time with them, asking them, what do they want? Where are you going? Why are you turning up for work? What's your reason? So getting to that kind of level of profundity. And once you know that and their skill levels, then you can start to go, well, actually, this is a role you could take on here. This is a role you could take on there. And you can start to figure out how to create that community. As I can't remember whether it's Gabby or Stacey or both that mentioned community, because as we know, community is broken down in many, many ways. And the workplace is a great way, or the family is a great way to rebuild community and teach people how to do community instead of just this punitive, did you make your numbers this month or not? So all of a sudden, and when someone's not making the numbers, as Simon Sinek might say, you might want to go in before you say, well, why didn't you make your numbers? And say, are you okay? Because, and this was a mistake that I made in my coaching career many times, was I saw them as athletes and players and then people, and it's got to be the other way around. And when you can get it that way around, then people will respect you more because they see that you care about them, not their ability. And so that's kind of like your second level, and then there's like 3 more layers below that, or above that, I suppose, in leadership, which are to do with mentoring people, helping them move forwards, not just listening to them and saying, okay, you want to do that, well, how are you going to get there, and helping them with that. And that means you have to spend a lot of time with them, and much less time. There's a very good example of a university college professor, president in the United States at a small university, and during the middle in the crossover of classes, he would go out into the schoolyard or the university square, and he would talk to the students and ask them, what do you need? And he would write down what they needed, and then he would go back to his office and he'd start working on those things. And so to the point where he knew the names of everybody and they knew who he was, and they would then approach him. And so you create a whole level of trust, because that's what it is. Leadership at the end of the day is trust. And you create this level of trust, and then you help people move forward and you help them grow. You don't do everything for them. You help them, you guide them. And you're there, as Stacey was saying, you're there as the support for when they need some help.
Keynes said on a number of occasions that people won't trust you until they know how much you care, and you can't demonstrate how much you care unless you put yourself there for people to see and to engage with. So trust, support, and empowerment of people seems to be key to good leadership, whether it's coming from the masculine or the feminine. I'm even going to be prepared to say that it matters not who the leader is if the other things that we've encompassed so far are in place. So, Gabby, Stacey, any thoughts on that?
I can always remember a live conference that Kane done in psychology, and he was talking about a principle that he, and the way he was going about it, nobody kind of twigged. And I says to him, I says, "Are you talking about you treat people the way you expect to be treated?" And he went, "Yeah." He says that is one of the first like golden nuggets in leadership. If you want people to better your life, you better theirs first.
Mm-hmm.
So you treat people the way you want them to treat you. And that's a lesson I have taught my boys since day one. That is a lesson that is I didn't actually take on until my late 20s. I was so bitter when I was a horrific teenager. My mum and dad would say it was a little bit more severe than that, but I was a really, really bad teenager. But it's when you realize that when you give something, you give to be authentic, to be yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but you do receive without any expectations.
Yeah.
And if you teach the team that, and you are willing to do that first, that can be so beneficial for whatever organization that you're willing to lead.
Mm. If you want to get ahead, help others get ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's
Yeah.
another saying that I always tell my boys: you never look down on somebody unless you're helping them up.
Mm.
So that I live by that on a daily basis. Mm-hmm.
Gabby.
Yeah, coming back to, the question of male, female leadership, I think personally we just go back to default mode because we still are kind of conditioned from childhood on to fulfill a different role as a man or as a woman, right? So man is the provider, the woman is the loving mother. It's still there. It's somewhere still ingrained in us. And I think what happens a lot when it comes to leadership, a lot of the times we never trained in leadership. But, we become a manager. We're supposed to lead a group of people. Why are we there? Because we did our job really well. And some boss said, you're the manager of this group now. But we never learn how to actually talk to people, how to communicate to people, how to lead them, what to do. We have no idea. So what we do, we copy very likely somebody we had as managers or leaders before us. So if it was all men, our style is probably more masculine. If there was a woman in there, or you maybe can only think of your mother, might be more feminine style. So we almost often fall into a leadership role by default without actually ever being trained in actually leading people. And I like what Stacey said. If anybody is out there and they're wondering, ooh, what type of leader am I? Just sit back for a minute and look what are you doing, and ask yourself, would I follow myself? So bit the idea what Stacey said, would I actually like to work under myself or not? And then think about what to change. What would you actually like to see in a leader? What type of leader would you follow and love to work for and work happily in a team with that leader? So that's probably the better question than masculine, female. I think in the end of the day, we're all humans. We have all the same emotions. We all have the same worries. It doesn't matter if we're male or female, right? It's the conditioning we got when we grew up, which makes the difference. But that can be de-learned. Simple as that. All new skills, yeah, sorry, all new skills can be learned, because as girls, because we were always told to be a good girl, a little bit like Stacey's story with the girl. You're a girl, so be quiet, right? Assertiveness is something we lack a lot of women, so that's maybe one skill we'd have to look into as well.
So a lot of the things that go into leadership also work in the personal dynamic, and the same way that a growth mindset around our own path of maturity and wisdom, that also goes across the things that you could learn to become a wiser and more mature leader. And Kane often says, if you want to know if you're a leader, look behind you and see who's following. So what about a situation where you look behind and the people that are following you are not necessarily the people that you wanted to be leading, and you're not going in a direction that you thought your leadership would take you? Anybody want to comment on that? Go on, Andy.
Yeah, so when you look behind and they're not the one that you wanted, it's because you attracted that type. So that means you need to change. And I know from my own experience, many of us think we can't change. We're in a fixed mindset, and making that switch to be a growth mindset can be really difficult because of our beliefs. So knowing that you can change, okay, at first you just need faith that you can change, and then you need to do the work. You need to not just read a book or talk to a person. You need to work and work and work and work, and then when you've got finished working, then you need to keep going, because the breakthroughs on the other side. It's not where you think it's going to be. So yeah, so that's where the growth has to come from you. And there's a saying in business that the business will only grow as much as the leader, and that's it. And it's the same with your followers. They will only grow as much as you're growing. If you stop growing, they will stop growing.
Derek?
Yeah, basically, I agree with Andy completely, because I've experienced that whole situation. And also from what Gabby was saying, because when I became a corporal within the military, then I became an instructor. The way I had been taught to lead was, if someone won't do as you're told, take them behind the shed and see what else you can sort out. Which sometimes worked, but it hurt as well. So not necessarily a good move, but that's the way I was taught. Although we took away the violent side of it, it was still very much just do it. Otherwise you'd be put on a charge, or whatever you want to be called, it, a fizzer these days or whatever. So you had a discipline scenario behind you that you could utilize to enforce people to do what you wanted them to do, even though they probably didn't want to. Later on, as I became higher in the ranks, and when I left and we were talking to business, it was more of, hang on, as you said, look over your shoulder. Are they following me? No. Why is that? Oh, I wonder why. So it really is a case. In fact, when I started with ecology, and I was talking to other people, I don't know if you can delete some of this, but I'm going to say it anyway. One of my guys turned around and said, "Hey, Des, how come you're so nice now when you're such a twat as an instructor?" And I thought, yeah, you're right. I was. And I was very autocratic. I had to teach them in a certain period of time and this was classified stuff as well as everything else. And we had to lock it into their heads, and I had 6 weeks to do it. So you couldn't have time, or we didn't have time to actually talk to them as humans. We did have an evening, but then because it was an instructor stroke student situation, they encouraged the fact that we didn't mix until after they qualified. So yeah, I was a complete and utter one of those. You know, I think it flies. That's a buzzard, isn't it? I know it's something like that, but it's very much a case of leaving the instructor side, becoming a leader, and looking at my instructors. It was a different story. I thought, hang on, you shouldn't be doing that. And then they would turn around and say, but that's how you taught us. And I thought, yeah, you got a really, really good point. So to fill that out, it's basically just to say, yes, you can change. And it's, if you do look behind you and you've got the wrong sort, yeah, find the right ones and follow them to start off with, and then you can take the lead later on. It's a lot easier that way. Learn by your own mistakes, basically.
And collaborate with people who are going in the same direction. There's no point trying to start a new movement if there's one that you're quite well aligned with already. There may come a time when that alignment comes out of sync and you move on, and maybe you've got other followers behind you. But whether it be military, blue light, or a more civilian sort of organization, there's some kind of duty, there's some kind of commitment and authenticity required. And there's also a kind of personal growth and development in order to be able to pick up the skills that are needed to be the nicer version of the instructor, perhaps, than you were. So any kind of closing thoughts on that particular point? Duty, authenticity, and a commitment to personal growth and development. Who wants to take that one to start?
Can I just jump in on that one because of following through? The commitment onto personal development is spot on, because again, what you're also using, the reason I got the right people to follow me in the situation was because they knew I was good at my job. Just because I was a whistle as well didn't make any difference, but they knew that if I taught them, they would learn well. So you got that sort of commitment that I had to them, which is what they actually picked up on. Yes, so how I said it might have been the wrong way, but yeah, that's as a closing point, it's everything, and everybody can be leaders in their own field, because as long as you learn from the right people.
And our experience brings our authority. So Stacey, what about you?
Yeah, I accidentally jumped into the leadership role. This was something that I never thought I would ever do. And people have actually told me that when it comes to doing something that they're scared of doing, they channel Stacey. What? So, and I didn't set out to be a leader. I didn't set out to be a mentor. I didn't set out to be anything like that. I set out to better myself. I just constantly worked on myself and worked on the things that I could change about myself. And because I was feeling the fear and doing it anyway, I was inadvertently leading people into doing the same thing. So it does all start with us. We go there first. Yeah.
Yeah, Andy made the comment a moment ago, if you look behind you and you attracted a certain type of people, then it's because of what you're doing. And you know, for you to be modeling, feeling the fear and doing it anyway is probably a real significant draw to some people, because you know, we all know from our own clientele that one of the biggest hurdles people have is this imposter syndrome. I can't do that. I'm not qualified. I'm not experienced enough. And then they're seeing you taking bold, courageous steps through your own commitment to your personal growth. And that is attractive to people.
Yeah, because when I was a teenager, when I was going through my rough years, I was very much a follower. I didn't see any good in myself. I waited on other people to tell me that, and I was following the wrong people.
Mm.
And it caused me nothing but trouble. That's why I'm a Scottish girl living in the middle of England. That's the reason we moved. And then I noticed I was moving away from those type of people, but I brought in like the knackered people of Tamworth, all these full-time mums wandering about, hair all dishevelled, absolutely exhausted. But then I'm kind of giving that identity up, and I'm bettering myself, and I've noticed that the people who are trying to like hold me down, they're falling away, because what I'm doing is more important than staying in all the gunge I was in before.
Mm.
And again, because of that, some people are going, "You've changed, what's happened?" And then they started changing themselves. Or you
Yeah.
get these people that go, "You've changed, I don't like you," and then they go away. But as long as you stay true to yourself, I can't emphasize that enough, as long as you stay true to yourself.
Thank you. Andrew.
Yeah. Just one more thing is quite often when you're in the leadership role, and like Gabby was saying, we haven't been trained for it. We think we need to know all the answers, and and even though you've heard that thing, okay, don't, if someone ask you a question, you don't know the answer, tell them you don't know the answer, and you'll get back to them. That takes some vulnerability, that takes some strength, and it takes confidence. So you've got to be able to have the confidence to do that. And then you've got to find the people around you that you can trust. You've got to build the trust with them in both directions, so that then you can go to them and say, look, I don't know what to do with this situation. Someone asked me this question. I have no idea what the answer is. So being able to be vulnerable, not weak, vulnerable. And through that, you show strength and you show your confidence. And if you don't have the confidence, there's ways to work on that too. And it's not just, affirmations. It's actually building your own abilities, so that you know that you're ready for whatever challenge comes up, or at least if you're not ready, you've got that vulnerability within yourself and the relationships with people that you can go to them and say, look, what would you do here? So the confidence, vulnerability, and humility are super important, and you've got to get that balance right. And that just takes a lot of work, and it takes practice as well, experience.
That ties into a point that was made earlier about knowing your team. Winston Churchill once said that one of the greatest aspects of leadership for him was knowing who to delegate to, and then not asking them how they were going to do the thing that was delegated to them. Just rely on the fact that you've got the right people in place. Derek used the example earlier of maybe somebody on the walk who's got some first aid experience. If you say to somebody, go perform first aid, you don't then tell them that they need this piece of equipment and that piece of equipment. You just trust, and then they will come back and say, yeah, we've resolved whatever that issue was, and it's all good. So Derek, I see you've raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just when Andy was speaking, we were talking the other day about certain aspects of leadership ourselves, and something I really need to share with you, and it's to do with business, it's to do with everything, okay? And believe it or not, it came from an American leadership trainer, okay? Andy knows already. And the statement for everything is less thrust, more vectoring. In other words, stop pushing, start looking at which direction you're traveling in. And believe it or not, if you stop pushing and guide the people to where you want them to be, they're going to get there a lot quicker, a lot easier, and a lot happier. Yeah. So I thought I'd just share that with you.
Thank you. Yeah. Gabby, go ahead.
Yeah, I think what's important as well is we have loads of lovely points, how we have to develop as a leader, how we have to hone in our skills like communication skills, people skills. You know, Andrew had lovely points. Vulnerability is actually a strength. People trust us more rather than be, oh, I know it all, you know. But the one thing a leader also needs, which is really lacking in leadership at the moment everywhere, is actually social awareness. We touched on that. And actually really taking responsibility for what you're doing and for other people. In other words, it's not all about me. And that's what often happens in careers. It's about me climbing the ladder, me getting to the next position, me getting more money. And it's all about me, 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 me. But as higher you go up in the leadership, as less it becomes about you, it becomes about the other people. You're the facilitator of that team. That's what you are. It's about the other people getting what they want, getting on in their career, helping them getting on the career. As higher you go, it gets less about you. It becomes about the other people. And that's what's letting in leadership. If you look even at politicians, it's all about them and their career and their connections. And people are fed up with it because a good leader cares about the people they're supposed to lead, not about themselves. So this individualism, higher you go, has to go if you want to be a good leader. It's about the other people.
Which ties nicely into what Andrew was saying earlier about being a serving leader. And, you know, sometimes it's the second in charge who is the most important part of the team, because you can have someone who has the vision, the ideas and the goals, but sometimes there needs to be that person who is making sure that the organizational structure, the systems, the processes are actually there, and that the people are coming along, you know, those people that have joined the movement. And I think we're all kind of looking at a movement mentality rather than setting up something that is about us, as you've just rightly pointed out, Gabby. And there needs to be those people behind the visionary leader who are looking after everybody else's needs and bringing them along, which takes us into emotional IQ and other aspects of character, which I suspect we might be served by keeping to another conversation, as we've already reached an hour. So what I would like to do is just run around the room, ask you for any closing thoughts, and also how can people contact you. So I'm going to start with you, Derek. Closing thoughts on the conversation, and how could people get in touch with you?
Closing thoughts on the conversation. Leadership is not one item or not a group of items that can be necessarily taught. You can be advised and you can be shown, but it's up to you to do it. And it's how you react. And a quick one from what Gabby was just saying, in my kids' school, it's an academy now. The headmaster is really just the business owner. The deputy head is running the school. So that shows again in that situation. Every situation in this world will have a leader, even if it's you leading yourself. So that's how you can do it. How to contact me? The best way to contact me is if it's within ecology, to come onto the page that we're actually all showing, the I forgot what it's even called, the WhatsApp page. Or you can get hold of me at Derek, that's DEREK _seller at hotmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you. Gabby, closing thoughts. How can we contact you?
I think my closing thoughts are that becoming a good leader is a long process. And sometimes, as I said earlier, just listen to yourself, to your intuition, and think about, would I follow myself? Would I trust that leader if I look at myself? and take it from there. Self-reflection is probably the best way to start this journey. And people can contact me either via my website, www.growingtallservices.com, or by email, gabby@growingtallservices.com. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you. Andrew, same questions.
Yeah, you just touched on it a couple of seconds ago, and that was when we're within our organizations, whether you're the leader at the top or you're the most lowest grade of person within the organization, the newest or whatever it is, you can lead. And what we need to focus on is not just having a career, but hopefully having a vocation, which takes it beyond just having a career is great. If you can get to the place, you don't have to, but if you can get to the place where your leadership becomes a vocation, where you're trying to bring people or help people get to the next level, then all of a sudden you're doing something that you are not bigger than the role. The role is bigger than you. The goal is bigger than you. So that's kind of a more altruistic, idealistic way of looking at things. My contact information is APM Nelson, A Andrew Peter M for Martin Nelson, apmnelson@gmail.com. Thanks.
Thank you. Stacey?
Yeah, my closing thoughts for this is, again, treat people the way you expect to be treated. If you are building a business, absolutely fantastic, and you've got workers coming with you, ask yourself, how are you going to bring these workers up with you rather than you stepping on the workers for you to get to where you want to go. This is, it's important to lead by example and go there first, to inspire and to upbuild the workers to build a successful business. So, or not just a business, it could be in the family, it could be in the community, it could be in the workplace. So, and my contact details is, you can email me on Etana, it's ETANA 79 @virginmedia.com, or my Facebook page, which is SA Mentoring dash Parent and Family Mentor and Ecologist. That's my Facebook page. You can catch me on there. Thank you, Alec.
Thank you very much. My closing thoughts are that within the Strategic Planning Committee group, there seems to be a real consensus that leadership is learned, that it's a mixture of nurture and personal ability, and having the humility and the vulnerability to ask when you as the leader need the support of others, which I think is probably counterculture to a lot of the way people believe that leadership should run. This is the sort of thing I do, facilitating these sorts of conversations and helping people find these sorts of answers. You can contact me via my website, which is desiredstate.uk, and email desiredstate@mail.com. And hopefully we will see you for some more conversations very much like these in the not too distant future. Thanks, everyone.